welcome to my channel and welcome to another episode of my lectures. Okay, today we are going to be discussing on a clinical approach to fever. Okay, most of you have requested me to do this topic, so which means I'm going away from what I usually teach. So today we are going to be discussing on more of a medical topic, which is the fever. And today we are going to be looking at a clinical approach to fever. Okay, so hope you guys you like my content, and if you like my content, do subscribe to my channel so that you can be updated whenever I post a video. And if you like my content very much, also give me a thumbs up. All right, so today let us discuss this clinical approach to fever. So now, by definition, what we need to understand is that the body temperatures of every human being differ. Okay, they differ with the age, with the kind of activities that you do, and the time of the day. All right, in the morning we expect the temperatures to be on a colder side, so which means that the temperatures of a human being, the core temperature of a human being, will be on a lower side. And during the afternoons, when the sun hits, we expect the temperatures of your body to be a little bit elevated. Okay, and the same happens in the evening. Or if somebody is always running, somebody who is always running, somebody who is always exercising, we expect him to have different temperatures to somebody who is always seated in an office with an aircon. Okay, so with that said, what WHO and other health organizations have done is that they have given us a range, okay, of normal body temperatures. Okay, instead of giving a specific value, they have now given us a range looking at the different studies that have been done in different patients. Okay, and that range of a normal body temperature is between 97 degrees Fahrenheit, or you can say 36.1 degrees Celsius, to 99 degrees Fahrenheit, or 37.2 degrees Celsius. Okay, so those are the normal body temperatures. That's a wide range. That's an average range of normal body temperatures of a human being. Okay, so if you have a temperature greater than that, we start to say that you are developing a fever. Okay, according to WHO and other health organizations, they have defined a fever as a temperature of greater than or equal to 100.4 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, or you can say greater than or equal to 38.0 degrees Celsius. Okay, so now we are going to look at this patient. Okay, this patient who has come to us with a fever, and according to our definition, we're looking at this patient who has got a fever, who has got a temperature of greater than or equal to 38 degrees Celsius. Okay, so with that said, let me give you a small story of what happened to me when I was an intern. Okay, those days when I used to be an intern, I was approached, okay, by a certain woman. Okay, this woman brought a patient, a baby, to me, whom she stated that this baby was crying, had been crying since morning, and this baby had refused to feed. This is a patient who came to me. She brought the baby to me. That was, let's say, around 14 to 15 hours. All right, that was around 14 to 15 hours. Others, they may say around 2 to 3 p.m. Okay, so this woman had brought me this baby, said to have refused to feed, and this baby was crying non-stop. So now, to make matters very interesting, this woman had taken this baby to a district hospital, okay, where they had done an RDT for malaria, which came out negative. They had done a full blood count, which came out very okay. They had even done a chest x-ray, which was normal. They had done a urine analysis, which was also normal. So these guys had done everything most of the things which are related to investigations, okay, just trying to look for what would be causing a fever in terms of an infection, okay. So now when the woman brought this baby to me, okay, she came with a refill letter, and this is how this baby looked like, okay. This is how this baby looked like. This baby, first of all, I can imagine, okay, because this baby was overly dressed. So I can imagine while this baby was at home, this woman was busy overdressing this baby, okay. This woman had put a lot of clothes on this baby, and I can imagine maybe this baby was so surprised, okay. This baby can't talk. He was giving the mother that eye, mom, what are you doing? But on the woman's side, I can also understand, because this was her first baby, okay? Her first pregnancy, her first baby. She had never raised a baby before. So I should believe maybe she was being overly protective. So now I can imagine maybe while at home, this baby was looking at this woman, telling this woman, mom, what are you doing? Why are you overdressing me? Okay, just look at this baby, is overly dressed. All right. So now, after giving that, let us say maybe after giving her mother that look, still the mother couldn't recognize the communication, because we know babies can't communicate, right? The mother couldn't recognize the communication. This baby decided to give the mother now that sad look, all right? He gives the mother that sad look. Mom, I'm very angry with you. Come on, remove these clothes away from me, okay? He's telling this woman, remove these clothes away from me. But this mother still doesn't understand the communication between her and her baby, all right? So now, since the baby has tried to stare at her, he has tried to give her that bad look so that she can maybe understand and try to remove those clothes away from him. Now, the mother can't understand the communication between the two of them. This baby now decides to do what? He decides to cry. Okay, so I should believe maybe this baby started crying at home. He was crying so much that he even refused to feed. The mother tries to breastfeed, the baby was just crying. Okay, now this mother becomes very angry at a point where she can even beat up this baby. All right, that's how she brought this baby to me. She was so angry. Okay, she was so angry that she could, if she had a chance of even slapping this baby, she could just slap him up, okay? Because she couldn't understand what this baby was doing, okay? This baby was trying to communicate to her to remove these clothes, okay? Because this patient came to me in summer, all right? This woman came to me in summer when she brought this baby. And in Zambia, when it is hot season, it is really hot where I am here, okay? Temperatures can go even as great as 32 degrees, 38 degrees, and there was a time the temperatures even spiked as much as 40 degrees. Okay, so now just imagine this baby is overly dressed, okay, by this mother who doesn't know how to take care of her baby. All right, and it is really hot outside. It is somewhere around 38, 39 degrees Celsius out there. And now she brings this baby to you, all right? She's so angry. Doc, this baby has refused to feed. This baby has refused to do anything. This baby is just crying. What could be the problem? Okay, she took this baby to the district hospital where they did all the investigations, and once they saw that there was no infection, I should believe they also ran out of ideas, and they just referred the patient to our hospital, a central hospital, for further management. All right, so now I'm going to teach you how to think. All right, how are you supposed to think when somebody brings you a patient who's got a fever? First of all, before I take you to that approach, I would like to thank Dr. Dube, who taught me this approach. I salute you, Doc, for this approach that you taught me, and I am happy to share this approach with the rest of the audience, all right? So what Dr. Dube told me is that when a patient comes to you with a fever, this is how you approach them. You approach them just like a house. Okay, this house has got an air con, and outside there is a sun. Okay, this is how we are supposed to approach this patient. Even when you are called by your nurses, let's say you are a doctor, you are called by your nurses, doc, I've got a patient spiking a fever. Okay, what should come in your head is a house that has got an air con, and outside there is a sun. Okay, what does that mean? All right, the sun symbolizes the environment. All right, so you've got environmental causes of a fever. Okay, these fall under the 3 heats. Okay, so we've got what we call the heat exposure. If somebody is exposed to extreme heat, they are at high risk of developing a fever. I'm not talking about infection, I'm talking about the environment. Okay, so when you are going to approach that patient, ask yourself, how is my environment? Is my environment hot? Is my environment cold? So you ask yourself, how is my environment? So this is where now you start thinking, or maybe the patient comes to your main OPD, okay, your main outpatient department there, and that patient has been brought with a fever. You ask yourself, how is the environment? What was this person doing in such a hot environment? Let's say it is a hot environment. You ask yourself, what was this patient doing in such a hot environment? All right, so you look at the 3 heats. The first one is heat exposure. Maybe this patient was exposed to extreme heat. All right, the second one is heat exertion. Let's say this patient is being exposed to a lot of heat. Now he's even exhausted. What was he doing? Just imagine somebody is exercising in temperatures of greater than 38 degrees Celsius. What are you doing with your life? You are busy. The body is trying to help you sweat so that it can cool your body temperatures. Okay, but you don't understand that the body is helping you sweat. You decide to go gymming and trying to lift all those big metals. You decide to run in such a hot temperature. You decide to play football. You decide to play games in such a hot temperature. All right. Or you can talk about our friends, the miners. You know, I had a chance to visit the mine. All right. What I saw is that those people who go underground, what they are usually told is that drink at least 3 liters before you go down, and you should go with some water underground, so that every time you are spilling water on yourself to cool your body temperatures. Okay, so let's say you are working at the mine, you should be ready to have such kind of patients. Okay, if you are working in hospitals, you should be ready to have such kind of patients who are really exposed, who are usually exposed to extreme heat, e.g. the fire, those firefighters. You know that first of all they are fighting big fires, and when you look at the way they dress, they are usually dressed in so heavy gowns. Now you look at your temperature is so high, you expect these people to fail to sweat. As a result, they start having excessive heat. Okay, so you've got the 3 heats. You've got heat exposure, heat exertion, and the last one, which is heat stroke, which is the most serious type. Okay, with heat stroke, the patient really needs hospital. Okay, this patient needs to be brought to the hospital as soon as possible. When we are talking about heat stroke, we are simply talking about temperatures now which are so high. Okay, so now with heat exertion, you can easily cool down the body temperature. Maybe you can put ice on the patient. You can give them those the tapered sponging. You can do all those things to the patient. Okay, even you can remove, if in case they're dressed in so heavy gowns, you can remove all those things. Just imagine that baby I just showed you. You know what I just had to do on this baby? When they brought this baby to me, I just remembered what Dr. Dube taught me, and then I just removed the clothes. I gave the baby a good bath, and then I gave the mother the baby. The baby stopped crying, and the baby was breastfeeding. Okay, so not everything related to a fever is an infection, because most of the times in medicine we are taught that fever equals to infection. It's not every fever which is equals to an infection. So you need to think of the environment. You ask yourself, how is my environment? So we are done with the 3 heats. Okay, so the second part of this approach is this air con. Okay, we have said there's a sun and then there's a house with an air con. What is the purpose of an air con? The purpose of an air con is to regulate and deregulate the temperatures, okay, the room temperatures. Even your body, which is the house, is made up of an air con, okay, which is known as the thermostat, or you call it the hypothalamus. Okay, what it does is that it regulates and deregulates your body temperatures. Okay, so now it could be that this patient of yours could be having a thermostat problem. It could be your patient could be having an air con problem. So this air con is failing to function. This is where we think of a mnemonic known as NMS. Okay, by itself, that's the same mnemonic by itself. It stands for neuroleptic malignant syndrome, which you usually see in patients who are taking antipsychotics. Okay, patients who are taking antipsychotics, such as patients taking the schizophrenia drugs. Okay, and then here mostly we are talking about those strong old generation antipsychotics, even though the new generation can also cause it. If you don't prescribe them properly, you are prescribing them like sweets. Okay, so they can cause this syndrome where now the body fails to regulate these temperatures, and then it makes your body so hot. Okay, a good example of this is haloperidol. If you are giving haloperidol without caution, my friend, your patient who is at high risk of developing this syndrome, and your patient will fail to regulate body temperatures. As a result, this patient will come to you with a fever. Okay, the next thing out of this same mnemonic, as you can see, I've even highlighted it down here. The N, we are saying it stands for neuroleptic malignant syndrome, which is the whole NMS, and then also the M can stand for malignant hyperthermia, which we usually associate with anesthesia medications such as Halothane. Okay, these anesthesia medications tend to play around with your cooling centers. As a result, your body fails to regulate and deregulate your body temperatures. Your body temperatures will start just to spike and spike and spike and spike. As a result, you come with a fever. That's why it is very important, before we do any operation, we need to ask our patient if they have reacted, or any of their family members has reacted to any of the analgesia drugs. Okay, because if the relative has reacted maybe to Halothane before, or any other anesthesia drug, and it caused a fever, just watch out on this patient. Your patient could be at risk of developing malignant hyperthermia if not well prescribed, or if you don't do your history and physical properly. Okay, the next out of the three syndrome is called serotonin syndrome. Okay, this is normally seen in patients who are taking a lot of antidepressants. Okay, these patients who are taking a lot of antidepressants, we usually see them with this condition. Okay, if you don't prescribe your antidepressant properly, you know that antidepressants, they tend to raise your serotonin levels. If your serotonin levels rise beyond, and it will lead to overfiring of the brain, and those, if instead of telling the brain to cool down, your brain will start heating up, and when it heats up, your patient is at high risk of coming to you with a fever. Okay, so we have talked about the environment, we have talked about the thermostat. Okay, now the next thing that he taught me, he said, okay, now the next thing that I'm going to tell you is very interesting. Okay, it's about a house. As you are building a house, what do you usually start with? You start with a foundation. Okay, you lay your foundation, and then you lift your house, and then you do your roofing. Okay, and then he said, what does that teach you? He says that symbolizes an inflammation. Okay, don't look at it as an infection causing a fever. Look at it as an inflammation. Okay, he says, you know what happens? Just imagine you were running outside. You were running but barefooted. You didn't have any shoes. You were running and then you hit a stone. Okay, you hit a stone. What is the first thing you're going to feel? Is pain. Okay, the foundation, you feel pain. Okay, and then if you don't have skins like mine, you start observing some redness, okay, around the area. You start observing some redness around the area, and then around the area it will start to swell up, okay, as it, like the house which is growing, okay, which is being raised, like a house which is being raised. You start to observe some swelling, okay, and then you start to observe some hotness, okay. So hotness stands for fever, okay. So which means he told me, he said anything that ends with an itis, it's at risk of giving you a fever, okay, because inflammation always causes hotness, and hotness could result into a fever. So if you remember your medical terminology, anything that ends with itis, instead of you just thinking about sepsis, malaria, okay? Because many people, when I say, what are the causes of fever, they will just say only sepsis, malaria, okay? But you're forgetting other conditions that cause an inflammation, and that inflammation would result into a fever, okay? So what are some of those condition that would result into an inflammation? Let us start with the itis. A few examples: you've got pancreatitis, okay, appendicitis, peritonitis, okay, diverticulitis. So you see, all these conditions that end with itis, they are at a high risk of giving you an inflammation, and that inflammation would result into a what? Into a fever, okay? Some of the other things that would cause a fever would be infection. Some of the things that would cause an inflammation would be infections, okay? An example of the most usually forgotten infections, because when I tell you what would cause a fever, many people will tell me pneumonia, they will tell me sepsis, they will tell me malaria. They tend to forget some quiet causes. I usually call them the quiet causes because many people usually forget them, okay? They fall under this thing we usually learn when we are trying to learn how to read. They usually tell us, okay, say A, E, O, U, okay? So just imagine it falls under that mnemonic, okay? The A stands for abscess, okay? You will need to check your patient for an abscess. Maybe they could be having an abscess which would be causing a fever, okay? The A could stand for an abscess. The E could stand for endocarditis, okay? Itis, remember itis, endocarditis. So could cause an inflammation which would result into a fever, all right? E, and then I stands for indwelling catheters, okay? Just imagine you've got your patient with a catheter for 14 days, okay? And you have even forgotten. Every time you are writing, continue same medication. You are not even examining your patient. That patient has got a foreign body, okay? Those foreign bodies are at high risk of giving you a fever, all right? All right? Just imagine you've got an abdominal drainage, an abdominal drain, and it's not active. It barely has any mils of fluid inside it, but you are still keeping it there. What are you doing? You are simply predisposing your patient to high risk of developing a fever, okay? So you need to check out for any indwelling catheter. Is this patient on a catheter? Maybe this patient was diagnosed with urinary incontinence and they had put a catheter on him, all right? You check for it if your patient has got a catheter and try to remove it if your patient has it, all right? So, and then the O stands for osteoarthritis. You need to look out for that. And then the U stands for UTIs. These UTIs, my friend, many of you usually think very soft, you call it sophisticated. That's how some of you usually think. You think of those big conditions and then you leave these common but quiet conditions, okay? I call them common but quiet because none of the people usually think of them. So infections would cause a fever, okay? Infections would cause an inflammation, and then the inflammation would later cause a fever. What are other things that would cause an inflammation? You've got things like blood clots, okay? Somebody has got a DVT, a PE. Just imagine somebody with a DVT. Have you ever been at a sewage before? At a sewage, usually water is stagnant, okay? It's stagnant, which means that a lot of bugs can grow there. Now just imagine somebody has got a DVT, okay? So which means the venous return to the heart has been blocked. So there's stasis of blood somewhere. You've got stasis of blood somewhere. What will happen? It will attract bacteria, okay? And where bacteria go, macrophages are there. Okay, you know that when macrophages starts to engulf and destroying bacteria, they will start producing pro-inflammatory cytokines, and those cytokines would bring about an inflammation, and that inflammation would later result into a fever. Okay, so you can think in those lines. Could this patient be having a clot? Okay, an MI? Okay, a CVA? All those things. All those things, they fall under the clots. Okay, your patient could be having a CVA. You don't know. Okay, so you look out for such kind of things in your patient. Could he be having a clot? Would this patient be having an infection? Okay, would this patient be having cancer? The most common cancers that cause a fever, you've got the leukemias and the lymphomas, okay? You think of those things. You can also think of the autoimmune diseases, which usually cause an inflammation. Cancers cause inflammation, and then inflammation results into a fever, okay? Autoimmune diseases such as SLE, rheumatoid arthritis, you can think of the gouts, you can think of the reactive arthritis. All those things, they tend to result into an inflammation, and that inflammation would later result into a fever, okay? The other things that I've left out that you need to think about sometimes are things such as the thalamic stroke and also the thyroid storm, okay? Those things tend to play around with your thermostat, and it fails to regulate and deregulate your body temperatures as a result resulting into a fever. The other medication that I left out, which is usually prescribed like sweets by most of the physicians, are the penicillins. There are some penicillins that would cause a fever. So you need to watch out of all these things. So whenever you see a patient who comes to you with a fever, always approach them as a house which has got an air con, and outside there is a sun, okay? This is how you approach a patient with a fever. And if you are in hospitals, as you are trying to think what would be causing a fever, try to do these basic investigations. You can do a full blood count, blood culture, urine analysis, chest x-ray, and you can do an RDT. But as you are doing all those things, remember this thing that I've put in red. Remember to do what? To think, okay? You should be thinking, could this be an environmental cause? Could it be an aircon cause? Or could it be a house? Okay? Always think in those lines as you're approaching your patients with a fever. Okay? With that said and done, hope you guys have gotten one or two things, and hope you are going to approach your patients very well, and hope I've widened up the way in which you guys think, and let's hope your patients will receive the best quality of care by you guys. For those who are in pediatrics, you can download this app. It is a very important app. I've seen it very useful. The time I was in PEDS, I downloaded this app. It really helped me. Okay, this app is called WHO Hospital Care for Children. Once you download it and then you open it, you have this page. You just click on guidelines, and then guidelines will take you to this page. You just click on chapters, and then it will give you all the topics. I haven't put all of them. It will give you all the topics that are there in pediatrics, and then you can easily click on fever, and then you see what fever gives you. All right. Other apps that you can download would include Explain Medicine. It's also a very good app. You can download Medscape, which is very good. You can download Prognosis and all these other apps. Okay. All right, there are a lot of very good apps that can help you during your ward round, so that you provide your patients with a best, or I can say with the best quality of care, and your patients would always go home very satisfied. All right, so if you liked my content, press that subscribe button and give me a thumbs up so that I give you more and more lectures. Have a lovely day and God bless.